Welcome to Panel C, Talking Offshore Wind Carbon Reduction. I'm Eduardo Euba, Director of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for WFO for inviting us. Let me introduce to you our speakers for this panel by alphabetical order, according to the companies. We do have Sarah Westenberger from Agrico. We have Dr. Chun-Hsien Chen from the Energy Administration. We have Kevin Liu from Iberdrola. We have Steve Huang from Pegatron. And we have Ruth Chen from Westwood. Our conversation will focus on four different questions. And let me address the first of these questions. In offshore wind developments internationally, there have been a number of success stories and also some valuable lessons to be learned, especially in the last 3 to 5 years. So how can Taiwan and the Asia-Pacific region be more competitive in offshore wind developments in the future? So that's the first question. I would propose that for this first question, we follow alphabetical order again, and then we'll make it more flexible, if you agree. So, Sarah, what's your take? And yourself and everybody else, if you want to introduce your company first, you may do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Maybe just to introduce Agrico very quickly. We are a temporary power provider from the UK, and especially here in Taiwan, we support the offshore wind sector doing installation, but also doing commissioning. So yeah, thank you for the first question. Maybe I want to start with saying that the Taiwan offshore market needs to understand that they also compete with other industries in the Asia-Pacific region. This is now coming from a subcontractor point of view, even though as Agrico is a big power company in a lot of other countries, but here in Taiwan we have more the role as a subcontractor. I think the main issue is that the Taiwan offshore industry needs to share the resources with a lot of other industries, and that could be vessels, that could be installation equipment, that also is manpower. And as a subcontractor, I will always have the difficulty to decide where do I locate, where do I put my resources. Do I put it, for instance, in Taiwan or in another market? And one of the key factors will be pricing, fair contracts, long-term contracts, but also planning. And these three things, of course, go in hand with each other. But if I can elaborate a little bit on that, as an example, I usually always have to justify internally with my company, why do we use this equipment for the Taiwan offshore market, even though we might have only a market price or even lower market price. The contract is very short term. The planning phase is very short. Lead time is maybe only 2 or 3 weeks, while we maybe have a much better planned industry in Singapore or Japan or Korea, where they also could use the same equipment for long term. They're planned already well ahead, and maybe they even pay a better price. And that is one of the key challenges I see with a lot of subcontractors. At the moment, I'm still in a good position. I always can kind of justify to my company why we should still choose Taiwan, because Taiwan is a new market. The offshore market in Taiwan is a new market. It's chaotic, but it's also developing. And everyone is learning their lessons. So it has become better already over the past year. So in this sense, I can always justify, and my company understands and say, okay, we still go for Taiwan, even though it's maybe a little bit more complicated or challenging market. But maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the road, if it's still a similar situation, I can expect that a lot of the subcontractors might similar to some of the bigger developers, leave the market and move on to other further countries. Yeah. So this is from a subcontractor point of view, my take out of this question. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Dr. Chen, please.
Okay, thank you. I think that the energy administration will be the public sector in Taiwan. We promote all the new and renewable energy in Taiwan. I think for the offshore wind energies, the offshore energy of Taiwan, as the first issue is that in Taiwan we have big potential for the offshore wind energy. According to some consulting company from the UK, I think the top 20 sites in all the world, I think we are over the 16 sites will be in the Taiwan Strait. So it means that yes, in Taiwan we have a good potential. But based on these potentials, I think for the Taiwan government, I think maybe in the year of 2011, we'll start our offshore wind energy market in Taiwan. I think for the Taiwan, we separate into the 3 phases. First will be about the demo phase. A demo means that in Taiwan we don't have such experience. So what about the regulation? What about technology? Does you know that in Taiwan we have the typhoon, we have the earthquake. Does all the turbine will be good in the Taiwan Strait? So we have some validation about the regulation. I think regulation is important for all the government agents because we don't have such experience. And that's about technology. Finally, it's about the finance. I think the offshore wind energy will be about the capital incentive business. So how to manage all the business issues. Based on the demo in the year of 2011, yes, at this moment we will go to the second phase, with so-called potential phase. And then now we are in the phase 3, in the third phase, with so-called donor potential phase. Donor potential phase, it means that, okay, we are open and all the sites we can have the stable, with so-called fail and transparent, and also some stable policy to promote the offshore wind energy. I think it's some kind of fixed button. And by the way, based on what so-called fixed button technology, now we will go to the so-called floating technology. So I think next phase is some kind of the floating offshore turbine stage. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Chen. Kevin, please.
So just quickly a word on Iberdrola. We are one of the world's leading electric utility companies with services across the full electricity value chain from generation through to transmission, distribution and retail. And in Taiwan we're focused, of course, currently on offshore wind development and hopefully eventually generation as well, originating from Spain also. In terms of how to stay competitive, I think from a developer's point of view and as an investor, but also future operator of a wind farm, having that long-term vision and outlook is something that we always remind ourselves that we must maintain. We not only want to be a developer of a project, we also want to be a long-term asset owner. So staying competitive for us means a lot of strategic vision. And from our point of view, currently we're seeing Taiwan making a remarkable rise into this regional offshore wind powerhouse. And it really is truly remarkable to see. And I'm not just saying that because our regulator is sitting 2 places down from me. But the offshore wind industry is facing enormous challenges. Previously, most offshore wind in the world was supported by government subsidies, generous government subsidies, because the technology was still relatively immature. It required a lot of government funding to help it get started, scale up, reach commercial operations, and then you kind of just let go and start to enter it into the private markets, whereby the laws of economic supply and demand start to really determine the success of an offshore wind project and eventually a long-term offshore wind asset. At the moment, we're seeing costs increasing dramatically across the world, here in Taiwan also. We're also seeing this public demand, but also industry demand for prices to be kept as low as possible. Because the difference between offshore wind energy and conventional fossil fuel-based energy remains fairly significant. So how do you balance that supply and demand between wanting to ensure that offshore wind becomes a profitable business for those who are involved in this industry, whether you're a developer or a subcontractor or contractor like a Greco, while at the same time being able to deliver secure, reliable, and affordable green energy? That's the next phase of our collective challenge. And I think if Taiwan and the rest of Asia Pacific can solve that problem, we will remain competitive.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Steve, please.
I'm Steve, and I come from Pegatron. Pegatron is a company with so-called ICT, and we build a notebook, we build a mobile phone, and component for electricity car for many famous companies. And from my viewpoint, I think this offshore wind is so important to us because in Taiwan, people really need the power more. So probably people don't know that Taiwan industry is so important. The name a company, a giant company called TSMC, they already use the power. There were about 7% of total power in Taiwan. Is incredible. But the company is so important. But if you count the other companies that including, I would say, Pegatron, the industrials rely electrical power so heavily. And I think offshore wind power is, like Dr. Chen said, to Taiwan is very suitable because we are surrounded by the sea. So I think to be more competitive in the offshore wind, 3 points I'd like to point out is first, the government support and good direction on that. I believe our government has done a good job. And the second is it should be have more open information to all the people living in this island, because I think that offshore wind may also successful not only the turbine company. You need a lot of infrastructure. So say how you distribute your power and how you can use the power. Many things you have to do. So if I don't believe the Taiwan company have to have some turbine making company. We leverage technology from the Denmark, from British. That's good enough. We are not urgent to that. But for many infrastructure, we probably use the resources the local company in Taiwan. So government should let emotion discourse more public and know people know this is important to the Taiwan future. So I think the second point is that information more public. And third one is Taiwan government can leverage the strength of the Taiwan company. For example, my company, ICT Technology. So I think this is a topic we're going to talk about later. And many technology can be leveraged to turbine company, to maybe for security reason, maybe for how the transition and how the technology, how the surveillance, many things. So if we can make this Taiwan strength of technology get into this business, you're going to have a lot. So this is my viewpoint at this moment. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Ruth, please, your turn.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruth and I'm from Westwood Global Energy Group, which is a UK energy market intelligence provider. I've been with the company for about 5 years now. So on this question, I think it's really interesting and I'll approach it from a perspective of an energy market expert, comparing countries and regions. And I think the first point about maintaining competitiveness is really the government regulations and subsidies. I think a few of my colleagues here have mentioned it, and I do think that this is a very strong point. I think Taiwan is a very strong case in point, where you can see the government engaging with industry closely, coming up with mutually beneficial policies, both for the local economy as well as for the developers. So I think out of the region, I think Taiwan really stands out in that point. Secondly, I would like to talk about the supply chain competitiveness. if you compare the various Asia-Pacific regions, I think various countries are still building up their supply chains. So I think these countries should build on their natural strengths and competitive advantage. So for instance, you see Vietnam focusing on their primary manufacturing capabilities like turbine foundations, etc. And then on the other hand, you see countries like Singapore trying to come up with engineering products like substations as well as wind turbine installation vessels. So building on the strengths and the expertise that these countries already have would ensure that they will be able to stay competitive as well as to promote offshore wind development.
All right, thanks a lot. So let's move to the second question. Which is the following. What are some of the factors that will affect the business model of international offshore wind supply chain in today's economic climate? So now let's make it open. Who wants to take this question first?
Okay.
Dr. Chen.
Maybe I think that I think for this issue, especially in this region and these times, I think if we see that all the turbine wind farm, we will separate into the also the cost and the price. So that's some kind of business. For the cost issues, okay, I think that at this moment, I think that maybe have some inflation issue or something. The cost will be high, including the CapEx and the OpEx. Means that, okay, the cost of all developer to build the wind farm will be in the high cost. But I think for the Taiwan market, we are put into the so-called CPPA, means that the corporate will buy the power from the developers. So we think that the CPPA, but you know now that we are concerned about the credit issues. So I think the price and the cost will be balanced. Means that they must have some reasonable income or profit. So based on this issue, the government of the Taiwan, I think we have some also called a national credit guarantee mechanism. We want more buyers to join the market to make all the offshore wind energy market will be more commercial. More players to join the game means that they can cover all the cost because it's good for the Taiwan market, not only for the 3.1, but also for the 3.2, even for the other region. So I think based on these issues, the government of Taiwan will do more about how to balance for the cost and the price, especially for the off-taker. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Kevin, maybe you
so
mentioned something about challenges ahead. Now we are still on that. Please.
Well, we're certainly still on that. I think in terms of the supply chain, and I'm kind of really talking to Sarah here because she's part of the supply chain, I guess supply chain wants certainty. But offshore wind is a public infrastructure project, which throughout its life cycle lasts for currently 25 years. That may get extended up to 30 years. But you're essentially looking at one-off sales, cables, turbines, transmission assets, auxiliary services. You're looking at one-off sales. Once you sell a turbine, that's it for the next 25 years, 30 years. When we charter a vessel to operate for us, it could be a year, it could be up to 4 years. So really, how do we ensure that there's repeat business for the supply chain? Where you either go off and build further offshore wind farms, which is what we're trying to do here in Taiwan, and indeed many parts of the rest of the world. And that's why we're now venturing into floating offshore wind, because on the one hand, there remains demand for more renewable energy build out. On the other hand, there already is a tremendous amount of investment going into the supply chain, which needs to be sustained over the long term, and that's why people want to do it. So I think the road doesn't obviously end here, but we need to keep on innovating together as an industry to ensure that whatever supply chain we invest in now is future-proof and fit for purpose. So, you know, forevermore, we're looking at bigger and more powerful turbines, and there may be a point at which we simply have to cap it because they get too big, too large, too difficult to handle, and we need to cap it. Similarly with vessels and cables, they get to a certain point in time when big enough is good enough. And I don't think collectively we've quite figured out how big is big enough. But there are material structural constraints that are now very challenging in many respects. So there are still technology breakthroughs that I think we need to be able to go through over the next few years, not least with floating offshore wind. But that's what's going to keep supply chain going. And I think that's actually great for the global offshore wind industry.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Who else? Ruth, maybe?
Yeah, just on the topic of the supply chain, I think one of the factors is also that perhaps since offshore wind faces the issue of intermittency, so perhaps one way to solve this solution, and this is something which I suppose the supply chain could work better to provide solutions, such as integrated solutions, including energy storage, and promote offshore wind development in that sense. Because we do witness, because on an unrelated topic, is really that there has been quite a number of project cancellations around the world, in the UK, in the US, and these projects actually have had very strong support mechanisms. However, and they have been very advanced in their planning as well, and yet developers have decided to pull the plug on these projects. So the supply chain now has to be very selective and very careful on which projects they want to pursue in the various regions and the countries. So this is some of the challenges that affects the business model of the supply chain.
All right. Thanks a lot. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Please.
Say something. I think we talk about the business model. So from border view, talk about the power purchasing method agreement. So as I know, so far, all the turbine they have to, or even other power generator method, they have to sell back to Taiwan Power, right? And for some times before, I talked to some of the experts, and I say, well, why not can I open to more people to do the business? And they told me that's not easy because the power green network, the company can manage. I know centralized is a very good advantage, it's easy to manage. But however, like for communication and mobile phone, in the beginning, Taiwan had only one company, Chunghwa Telecom. But now already 4 or 5, and I think competition is a good thing to make business grows faster. But another thing is can cost lower, or even more technology can get into it. So I know the Taiwan Power, they don't have a very good balance sheet this year. They are not paid good money. And so people argue about how the pricing, how they define the pricing of the power, not only offshore wind, maybe other things. So if more company can join that, maybe can, more brand to think about more method, maybe good. But we also have to think about not to be too aggressive because I think the technology is not easy. So if government can plan, or with the people in the commercial people, they can step by step and go to open direction. It probably can help Taiwan offshore wind involvement better. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just building on his point about the government policies and subsidies, I think if you look at the case of UK, the UK recently received no bids for the allocation round 5. And you can see how decisive the government responded by raising the offshore wind strike price cap to £76 per megawatt hour from the previous £43 per megawatt hour. So you can see how government policy and subsidies could potentially improve things for the supply chain and developers if they were quick and decisive, and as well as engaging with the industry. So I feel that the government's aspect is very important as well.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Okay, I think I want to say that for the Taiwan market, I think for the green energy power market will be open. Means that you can sell to the other one. But you know that you must sign, just mention, you must sign the PPA with the sun company. Means that the green power from some developer, you can sell the power to some company, like the bigger enterprise in Taiwan. So we are open at this moment. But I think that the key issue is not the price of the electricity in Taiwan is low compared to the green energies. So I think it's how to balance for this the balance for the gap. The second issue is now the government of Taiwan want to promote for the offshore energy in Taiwan. So we are separating into the two items. First will be the first button. I think for the UK market will be focused on the first button budget. Yes, I think I just mentioned for the first button project, we are open. So we signed a CPPA with the other company. But I just mentioned for the national credit guarantee mechanism. Yes, the power company they maybe use some low price to buy the power. That's some also called a guarantee price. But if you have the high price, just go to the market. Also we are, but for some new technology like the floating technology, yes, the government want to use the floating tariff to support for the new technology. Now, tariff means not okay for the some company they use some new technology, they maybe have some risk. So how to balance for the also called the business model. So they must have the fixed price for the buyers, so that they can control all the cost. So I think the parts of Taiwan, we try to want to promote it not only for the Spartan project, but also for the 14 project.
All right, thank you. Sarah, any comments?
I think actually, everyone already mentioned quite a broad view of things.
All right.
I think I have nothing much to add.
Thank you. So let's move to our third question, which is the following. Is floating wind necessarily the next step for the offshore wind industry, and does it have a role in carbon reduction? I would propose that Dr. Chen may share with us the plans for floating technology from the Energy Administration.
Okay, thank you. I think for the Taiwan, we want to reach for the net zero emission by the year of 2050s. So we set a target by the year of 2020 for offshore wind energy will be about 40 to 55 giga in that time. But you know that not only for this bottom project, but also I think the other point will be about 14 technologies. We need more 14 technology in Taiwan. So the government, the Taiwan government, we think we have the 14 wind power validation project. Actually, we just have the seminar last Friday. Means that we have some draft. First, it will be about, I think the capacity will be about 90 mega to the 180 mega in that time. Means that this floater to the 12 floater will be set at about capacities. I think, by the way, the grid connection time will be extended maybe to the 2029 or the 2030s in that time. But by the way, I think just mentioned that the government will be use the very intense support for all the project. And I think the other issue is about how to cooperate with our local supply chain. Even, okay, I think it's good for the Taiwan because in Taiwan, we have the typhoon, we have the other climate issues. How to have the new technology in Taiwan, I think we are encourage all the develop our local supply chain, even our local academic can do some research about this one. I think we will announce, I think in this June or July. And the data will be end of this year. I think based on this year, we can maybe in the year of 2029, we have some 14 wind turbine in Taiwan, not only for the first bottom, but also the new technology. Based on the experience of the 14 technology, I think we can extend it to the, just mentioned the year of 2040 or year of 2050. I think it's big market in Taiwan. So I think it's good for the carbon reduction, not only for the Taiwan, but also all the world. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any comments? Sarah, please.
Yeah, I would like to mention that also with floating wind, we get a little bit loose of the resource limitations, which I mentioned before. So for instance, when we look at vessels, a lot of the vessels which are needed for foundation installation are not needed anymore. Of course, you still need vessels to pull out the floating wind structure, but at the end, when we look now at a fixed bottom foundation, you have 1 or 2 main vessels and then 5, 6 vessels, supporting vessels around that. It's a huge amount of vessels which also are needed somewhere else in the world. So looking at this, we have less resources and therefore, of course, also less emissions. And then since we're not having to deal with the fixed bottom foundations, so we also impact less the environment, the soil. There is no really need for the bubble curtains, which are at the moment usually in use to protect the marine system from the noise, because there is a lot of huge noise produced while we actually do the fixed bottom foundations. And that will also be something which will be probably totally avoided. So less environmental impact again. And yes, and that also means less emissions, of course. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Kevin, please.
So I'll probably be a bit contrarian here. I know that the panel is on floating offshore wind, but is floating necessarily the next step for offshore wind? I don't think so. You need the right conditions for floating offshore wind to work. We know that it's more expensive, but how much more? I mean, that's really what we're doing, or at least a big reason for why we are about to enter into this demonstration round, is not to only prove the concept is proven. The concept has been proven in many parts of the world where there are, albeit fairly small scale, floating offshore wind farms already in operation. We know the concept works. Does the concept necessarily work in Taiwan? We don't know yet, and that's why we need to demonstrate it to find out. But will it be affordable enough, not cheap, but affordable enough to really fill that energy gap that we so desperately need from renewable sources? We don't know. And if it's not affordable enough, I don't think it's necessarily the next step. I think there may be a point in time when offshore wind finishes, and that's it. You know, we've used up all of the space, like we've used up all of the land for onshore wind or for solar, and we've now used up all of the maritime waters that we have here in Taiwan for offshore wind build out, and that's it. And you know, we're always bound by constraints. So, you know, I think we just need to be looking at this very prudently and say to ourselves, well, if offshore wind needs to stop, then how big can it get before it stops being unsustainable? And what's the next thing beyond offshore wind? Is it other forms of marine and ocean energy? Is it hydrogen? Or is it doing more on energy conservation and bringing our overall energy consumption levels down to a more sustainable level so that we can continue to supply the energy that we need? Is it good for carbon reduction? Absolutely. I mean, the wind speeds that you see out, the further you go, the deeper you go, the stronger the wind it gets. So is it good for wind energy generation? Absolutely. But there is an economic factor in there that we must consider.
Thank you so much. Yes,
I
please,
think the
Steve.
floating offshore wind is a trend because when the offshore wind construction far from the shore and the depth of the seawater deeper, and the cost of construction is higher. And I see some reports say if the deep water depth is deeper than the 60 meters, and you probably can start to consider 14 offshore wind, because however, 40 offshore wind is complicated and more difficult to build. I think it already experiment in Denmark maybe 10 years ago and successful. But you have to put an anchor, you have to make sure you not destroy something. But I think this is the way, because when the area we already built a lot of offshore wind in the next 5 years, then you will consider more far, then you probably have to consider it. And I believe technology will be better good at the moment. And talk about carbon reduction. This is a so important topic everywhere in the world. Talk about this. Even the car emission, many things. Electrical vehicle so important is also for carbon reduction. But I think the offshore wind onshore, of course, can help this carbon reduction because they didn't generate any the carbon emission, and compared to maybe coal burning or the gasoline, the kind of things. So both the offshore wind or floating can do that. So I think the Kevin mentioned is a project I know is a called DEFIN. DEFIN project is issued by a company called EIM. They think they use the case of the floating offshore wind, and they use seawater to generate hydrogen, and through cable sent back to land, offshore land, and of course when you burn the hydrogen, it's a really just a water vapor. It's a totally no carbon reduction. So this is a good example how offshore wind can help the carbon reduction. And even now the car company, not only they want to reduce the carbon, not only the electric vehicle, but also they consider hydrogen. Of course, so far it's not so stable, still has some dangerous situation. But I foresee in the near future there are more and more. Japanese is more on this. Like everybody knows the Tesla, right? They do very well on the electric vehicle. But Toyota, they say electric vehicle is not the only one solution to cut the carbon with the space. But Japanese they favor on the hydrogen. And so I believe that this kind of good technology is all important and need people to keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Ruth, any comments?
So based on what everybody has mentioned, let me just give my take on this. So on floating wind, I like Kevin. I don't think it's necessarily the next step. It is project specific. So if you look at countries with deeper waters and limited shallow water capacity, that will be something that they might want to explore. So for example, if you look at Japan, they are working on coming up with legislative processes to open up and develop the exclusive economic zone, which are mainly in deeper waters. But for countries like Vietnam, which has so much shallow water, I mean, about 1 gigawatt of their capacity are intertidal, they may not actually find it a priority to go into floating wind. As some of you have mentioned, there's because of the higher LCOEs and also the fact that technology is still relatively uncertain. On technology, I think this is something which I've been studying for a while, which is there are quite a huge number of floating wind technologies out there, but only a few are actually proven, or at least with a technology readiness level of at least 7. So I might disagree on the fact that the technology is ready for the market to grow, but we shall see really, because with government subsidies, with industry self-help, I believe that might be a mitigating factor. And then with regards to decarbonization, I believe the clear example of the Hywind Tampen in Norway, they have demonstrated that it is possible to electrify 5 offshore oil and gas platforms in the North Sea, contributing about 35% of the annual electricity demand. So that is a very successful case of floating wind helping in decarbonization. And I believe this is a case which can be replicated in other countries with market maturity. Yeah, so that was what I thought of.
Thank you very much.
Can I chip in with 2
Please.
further comments, if I
Please.
may? A very wise man who happens to be a former boss of mine said to me, never run a business based on government subsidies, right? And government subsidies come from somewhere, and they primarily come from, taxpayers' money or foreign exchange reserves and so on. And this is obviously the government investing in less developed technology. And you can base your future revenues on government subsidies or awards or grants to a certain extent. But should you be running a business based on subsidies alone? Well, probably not, according to conventional wisdom. So at some point, if floating offshore wind works in Taiwan and is able to withstand very, very choppy waters in the Taiwan Strait and is able to withstand typhoons, then the next big challenge will be the economic test. So that really is, that's something that we need to look at in the future. The second point being offshore wind for now, and I think for a while longer, will not be baseload power. So, of course, we can continue to build out offshore wind for the foreseeable future and do as much as we can and do as much as we can afford, but it will never replace gas or other fossil fuels in that manner. It will never deliver the type of baseload power that we need unless we can really start getting very, very creative and also start building very, very large storage facilities, however shape or form it might take. But that's a very, very long way off. So at some point, these intermittent energy sources, like Ruth was saying, there needs to be a limit there somewhere because it will not resolve our challenges of requiring baseload power 24/7, 365 days a week, and not least the ICT industry that is so energy intensive.
All right, thank you. I think it's time we move to our fourth and final question, which is the following. How can the offshore wind industry capitalize on the unique strength of the ICT industry in Taiwan? Steve, yeah. I think as representative of Pegatron, you're the more qualified person to tackle this question.
Sure. Pegatron is categorized as an ICT company. So first, let me use a very short sentence to say, what is ICT? ICT, information and communication. I use the easy understand words, is a computer and a mobile phone. So these two products is so popular, everyone uses that. You cannot live without these two devices, right? And that has been developed for almost 40 years. Start from the IBM PC, start from the iPhone, and also these two industries help semiconductor industry to grow. So they get a big pressure to semiconductor because you said that when Steve Jobs invented iPhone and iPhone 1, 2, Apple have to make you feel comfortable. Make you really keep your eye on, say, hey, I want to buy new iPhone. So they have a more complicated computing, more feature. And so in terms of this, they push the semiconductor company to make progress. So they generate Intel, the Samsung, even the Taiwan company TSMC become so important. And now when semiconductor they grow, they help not only the ICT company, they also help a lot of industrial, of course, including the very sensitive defense the industrial, like the fighter, like the ship, and so important. And so at this moment, in the 21st century, and I found many originally very conservative industrial, they start to damage the advantage of the technology for ICT. Because ICT technology, this market is very open, it's the most open one. But you talk about automobile, like Ford, this very big company, and like the airplane, like Boeing, this very close conservative. And even hospital, medical device, the Siemens, they build, they scan your body, they scan heart, they're very conservative. But they found they don't want to develop new technology their own. They can damage other things, like camera, like the laser, like even the VR. Many things they can damage. So they're quite successful. So people say that they test the Elon Musk, they build their Model 3. Actually, it's just a normal PC on top of 4 fields, right? So they use all technology, especially one technology called artificial intelligence. Now it's so popular in the world. When last year ChatGPT happened, it almost influenced everybody's daily life. And so many industries actually just a jump. They ICT maybe developed for 20 years. They just jump and take technology and made their own field very successful. So I think about now is a time for offshore wind industry to leverage this kind of technology. So in some sense, offshore wind, I don't say very conservative, but it's kind of isolated construction because so big. 1 year before, I didn't know the wind or the offshore wind is even more than 100 meters. They're big, right? This not like we can imagine for we can build the iPhone. So the industry is very, very different from ours. So now for me, the important thing is how we connect the two kind of engineer from the two worlds to talk to each other. Not say to co-work together, but at least first talk to each other. And of course, this can help the ICT company pick up so we can have more business to do, we can more make money. But we can help the turbine maker. They build lower cost, faster, and more feature, security, many things. So this is a very good trend. And I think that this year, since from last year, people in this field start to talk about a lot of the technology. So this is my first point.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we have a time constraint, so I think if there is any further comment, rather brief.
Sure. I mean, happy to say that since taking up this role at Iberdrola, we've had many very interesting conversations with Taiwan's ICT industry. There's a term in offshore wind, particularly when you get to the operations and maintenance phase, which is incredibly important, and that's condition monitoring. And let's not forget that these offshore wind assets are really far out. They're not manned, they're remote. So our response time, whether by boat or by helicopter, is slow. And we need to know what's happening at any given point in time. We don't just need real-time condition monitoring, we need to be able to predict what might happen and what might be faulty in the future. And that's why we need sensors to support us with building an Internet of Things network. We need innovative solutions like 5G private networks to help us communicate and make sure that all of the turbines, all of the cables, our offshore substation, all linked and there's nothing wrong. And we need to know with a lot of accuracy exactly how to address certain issues at any given point in time. And I think that's where the ICT industry can come into this industry right now, is to supply us with the tools that we need.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So no further remarks? It's all right? Thank you. So then I think we went through the 4 questions. So I propose we call it a day. Thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you for WFO for inviting us, and thank you for your attention. See you. Bye-bye.